Thank you. All right. Sounds good.
Okay, everybody. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. First off, I'm Greg Cartrett. I'm the Director of Permits and Inspections and the Code Official for the county. Glad to have you here this morning. Off to the table over here, we got coffee, donuts. Please feel free to get up, grab some donuts, some coffee. Little housekeeping: restrooms. Go out the door. Go like you're going back to the entrance where you entered, and they're all at an angle. You'll see the men and women restroom there. Also, in your packet that you got, we've got a PowerPoint presentation with notes for the slides. We've got a residential permit plan requirements. We've also got the Washington County Permits and Inspections contact list, and also a guide to citizen access in your packet. So with that being said, I would first off like to just kind of go over, we did have in February of 27, we had a public hearing regarding the adoption of the code, the 2021 code. The Washington County Commissioners adopted the 2021 codes, and they will be effective July 1. That's so we can have plenty of time to have a community outreach, get our inspectors trained, and so forth on the new codes. Just to kind of clarify something, a lot of questions have been asked about this. If you submit a permit application before July 1, that project will follow the 18 code. Anything July 1 and after, when the key is the permit application. So anything after July 1 that is submitted will be the 2021 code. Okay. So Ms. Michelle, our county administrator, is here. I'd like to welcome her, and just if you have anything you would like to say, Ms. Michelle, come on up before we get started.
Well, welcome. My name is Michelle Gordon, County Administrator. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to attend our informational meetings today. I see several familiar faces and many new faces that I haven't seen yet. I really appreciate you coming here today. I'd like to thank Greg Cartrett, our Director of Permits and Inspections, Frank Quillen, and all of our Permits and Inspections staff for putting these informational sessions together. I'd also like to congratulate Frank Quillen on his upcoming retirement. He's got 71 days left. He's counting down the days. He's a short timer. The county's goal in these informational sessions is to make sure the transition to the 2021 Maryland Building Performance Standards and the 2021 International Building Code, trade codes, as well as our local amendments is seamless. So if you have any questions after the informational sessions, please make sure you're reaching out to our permits and inspection staff. Becky Gander is also a big help. I'd like to turn it back over to Greg to continue with the program.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle. Some of you, I just want to go ahead and answer a question. We do not have our local amendments in the packet. They're still at legal as they are writing them, but once they come available, I can tell you there's no significant local amendment changes that we did. So once they are available from legal, they will be on the website for you to pull those up. Like Ms. Michelle said, Mr. Frank is retiring. And he's got 71 days. So I'm going to ask Mr. Frank to come up. This is kind of going to be his final hurrah, as he's exiting as the deputy code official. So Mr. Frank, come on up.
Thank you very much and welcome. Michelle, thank you. 25 years. I'm older than I look. Well, we're going to start off today with the significant changes to the International Residential Code. We'll start with the definitions. The definition for a townhouse has been revised. We've talked for years about side by side or over and under. Well, the code has clarified that for us now. And as you'll see, the townhouse, the description of a building has been changed. When you see the underline, it has been added. If it's crossed, it's been deleted. So this is the changes in the wording of the code. And 90% of the time, if you look at those definitions, you're going to find your answer, because that's where they hide the answers, in the definition itself. So chapter 2 is very important in all of the building codes, because that's where you'll find your definitions. So for your townhouse, the building, of course, any 1 or 2 family dwelling or townhouse or portion thereof used or intended to be used for human habitation, for living, sleeping, cooking, or eating purposes, or any combination thereof, or any accessory structure. So they've added townhouse to the building definition. And of course, underneath, the key to the townhouse definition is townhouse units. A single family dwelling unit in a townhouse that extends from foundation to roof, that has a yard or public way, or not less than 2 sides. So that kind of does away with the over and under. The common wall separating the townhouse units. I know some of you guys with framing experience are going to be very familiar with this one. This shows you the prohibited installation. Basically what you have is the party wall intersecting an exterior wall, the inside face of an exterior wall. And you can see if it's just a cavity, that gives you a place for the fire to get around the fire code drywall, which is supposed to prevent the fire from going from one side of the townhouse to the other. But you can do this if you use solid wood blocking. And all right, permitted installation there. You can see solid wood blocking, as long as your fire code drywall is up against that wood blocking, that's sufficient for the townhouse party wall. The prescribed fire resistance rating separation between 2 dwelling units in a single building is not affected by a lot line. So no difference in the duplex. Mechanical ventilation, section 303.1. The local exhaust system is acceptable substitute for natural ventilation in kitchens. So designers, you don't have to figure out a way of getting a window in the kitchen. You can use the mechanical ventilation. Emergency escape and rescue openings require a clear 36-inch wide path to the public way. So if you're looking at that, now the building code is regulating a way out of the yard. And it's not saying that you need a sidewalk or macadam or anything like that. It just, you have to have a pathway. You have to be able to get out away from the building into the public way. And so you couldn't have, technically, you couldn't have shrubs and the like in the way so that you can get out. You're supposed to leave a path. So that's from the emergency escape and rescue opening to the public way. Emergency escape and rescue openings under decks, porches, and cantilevers requires 36 inches minimum clearance by 36 inches wide. Again, a way to crawl out of a basement under the deck and to crawl out and get out away from the building that's on fire. So, this one gets a lot of people. You can't always move the emergency escape and rescue opening, so this will be helpful. So you're thinking of this, you gotta be thinking, well, okay, what's my elevation of that first floor? Because that's what's gonna set the height of that deck. Area wells for emergency escape and rescue openings. The provision for window wells and area wells serving emergency escape and rescue openings have been merged into one section for area wells. You don't have to go to two different places in the code to find it now. It's all in the same section. And if anyone has questions, we'll answer questions at the end of the presentation. If they're really in-depth, the information in your packet where you can contact us in the office might be the best way to answer specific questions. So give us a call if you wind up with a question that's, that's really in depth, and we'll be able to answer you better back in the office when we have our full library of information available. Okay. Deck load. Wood frame decks shall be in accordance with this section, designed with live loads required in section R301.5 or the ground snow load. We require 40 pounds per square foot live load on decks. Used to be 60 when I first came here, so there's been no, knock on wood, there's been no collapses locally, so 40 seems to be the magic number. That would be the same loading that would be required on the first floor. Exterior guards, section 507.10. They've added specific requirements for deck guards. Guardrails shall be constructed to meet the requirements of section R301.5 and R312. Soffits, requirements for soffit material and installation have expanded and are added under section 704. Rafter and ceiling joist bearing. Text is added to clarify when a ridge board connection is sufficient for bearing. A big one for you electrical guys. Air-sealed electrical boxes. Electrical and communication outlet boxes installed in the building thermal envelope must be sealed, tested, and marked for compliance with the reference standards. Yes, sir.
I want to just interject, on the next couple of slides, you're going to see where we refer to the 2020 NEC. We do not use the IRC chapter 32 through 34 through 42, and we have deleted that. But we used, because it's got pictures from the significant change, and we're just directing you from the IRC electrical portion to the NEC where you can find, what we're talking about in the NEC.
Thank you. Emergency service disconnects. An emergency service disconnect is required in a readily accessible outdoor location. And again, we're referring to the 2020 National Electrical Code. Surge protectors. The surge protective device is now required at the service panel. Okay, big changes for the electrical guys. GFCI protection for 250 volt receptacles, dryers, ranges. Now surge protection is required. Okay, now we'll move on to the significant changes to the International Energy Conservation Code, the IECC. Now, what we have is a State of Maryland amendment to the International Code Council. The federal government had decided for this particular code cycle that they were going to require R60 in the ceiling. Well, Maryland kind of took exception to this and said, well, wait a minute, if we don't beef up the ceiling construction, the structure, the ceiling's going to collapse with all that insulation. So they developed a way to keep R49 in the ceilings and add some other trade-offs. It's going to get pretty involved. We could have a class on this Maryland amendment so that everybody would understand it. We don't have that time today. The devil's in the details. All of these footnotes are going to be your path to Maryland compliance with the energy code and allow you to keep the R49 in the ceiling that the last code cycle had allowed. A little different, a little bit of trade-offs. Concrete slabs now, if you recall, we used to insulate 2 feet of that turned down edge or the footing, but now we're going to do 4 feet of 10, what is that? 10 CI. In any event, you read down through those footnotes, it's going to explain to you how to put these footnotes together with that R49 to get a code compliant installation. I couldn't even read them to you if I had to. The newly adopted swimming pool and spa code. The state of Maryland has approved the swimming pool and spa code and is now part of our code requirements. A lot of this is very similar to the swimming pool code that we used previously. Basically, we had adopted old language out of old building codes in the past. This is a brand new code, but a lot of it's the same. Sorry. Did I get that right? Or I still got code amendments. I'm out of, I'm still in order. Maryland law requires property owners to construct an adequate barrier around the residential swimming pool, which includes any structure intended for swimming, recreational bathing, or other use that contains water over 24 inches in depth and is located at a single or two-family dwelling. They're not going to approve the use of those safety covers in Maryland. The state has decided that it's not equal, so we won't be approving pool safety covers. We're going to require the pool barrier. Significant changes to the International Building Code. Of course, that's commercial construction out of the IBC. Definition of a penthouse has changed slightly to include enclosures that house stairways. That's a change. It was unclear whether they included the structure on top of the building. It would be the top of the stair enclosure. Well, now that's also included in the penthouse description. Uses not classified as Group H. We've got a lot of local distilleries and breweries, so this is going to affect those. The distilling or brewing of alcoholic beverages, as well as storage of beer, distilled spirits, and wine, now considered as conditions where the quantities of the beverages are not limited in a non-Group H occupancy, provided it complies with the Maryland Fire Code. Puzzle rooms. Puzzle room is now regulated in a manner consistent with traditional special amusement areas. In addition, special means of egress requirements have been established that are specific only to such puzzle rooms. We do one of these up at Fort Ritchie here now. Pay special attention to Chapter 10, which is the egress requirements. They will spell out the requirements for the puzzle room. Cooking and ambulatory care facilities, where domestic cooking facilities are provided. Conditions addressing the installation of the cooking appliances have now been established to address any fire concerns. What they had determined in these ambulatory care facilities that they could use domestic cooking appliances. They didn't have to be commercial units, and they could be installed much the same way as they are in your home. Enclosure of exit passageways, section 707.5. Fire barriers creating an exit passageway may now terminate at a fire resistance rated top or lid, instead of continuing to the underside of the roof slab above. That's a big money saver, especially when you got high ceilings. Heretofore, if you had an exit passageway, that fire protection had to go all the way to the underside of the roof deck. So if you had a 30-foot high ceiling, it went the whole way. So this is a big change. Ceiling radiation dampers. The use of static ceiling radiation dampers are now permitted where controls are used to shut down the airflow in the ductwork. Fire dampers and ceiling radiation dampers that are listed for use in static systems shall only be installed in heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems that are automatically shut down in the event of a fire. Distilled spirits poses a sprinkler requirement for both the manufacturing and bulk storage of distilled spirits. We've seen earlier where the quantities aren't important anymore as far as calling it hazardous. It used to be you get so much alcohol in the building that you had to call it a hazardous occupancy. Well, they did away with that, but the trade-off is they all have to be sprinkled. Fire command centers in group F1 and S1. That's factory and storage occupancies. A fire command center is now required in buildings housing group F1 or S1 occupancies where the building footprint is over 500,000 square feet inside. And we've got single exit stories. For single exit stories, the travel distance limits are now based on the exit access travel distance as opposed to the common path of egress travel. Probably not going to mean a lot to contractors, but for designers, that's very important. Again, designing the means of egress for a building and the way out is probably the most important part of that design. Stairway illumination. Minimum illumination level for both exit and exit access stairways has been increased from 1-foot candle to 10-foot candles. Locks and latches. General locking provisions have been expanded to allow locked doors in the egress system when desired due to the clinical needs of care recipients or exterior areas of egress back through the building. For years, this was no-no. You certainly wouldn't want to block someone's way out with a locked door that they couldn't operate. But there are some situations where they allow it. This section 1010.2.4 will spell out when you can use it. Dead-end corridors. In hospitals, a corridor does not serve patient rooms or treatment spaces. It's now allowed a maximum 30-foot dead end. Again, a design, for architects and designers and contractors. Dead loads at the roof level have been clarified, as well as fixed service equipment concentrated loads. You guys designing roof trusses, that's an important change. What did we miss? Ballasted roofs, I'm sorry. All requirements applicable to the design and construction of ballasted low-sloped roofs are now contained in the ANSI SPRI RP-4 standard. So there's a standard for low-slope ballasted roofs. Okay, once again, the dead loads at the roof level have been clarified, as well as fixed service equipment, concentrated loads, air conditioning equipment and the like, fans, exhaust fans on the roof. Frost protection at required exits has been added to the foundation requirements. Shall be provided at exterior landings for all required exits with outward swinging doors. That's the main doors. That's not the storm door or screen door. Frost protection shall only be required to the extent necessary to ensure that the unobstructed opening of the required exit doors. Frost eve on a stoop will keep your door from opening, and it's real. So that's why we require frost protection at those stoops, so you can open the door. If it heaves, you can't get the door open. Intermodal shipping containers, section 3115. Use of intermodal shipping containers as buildings and structures is now recognized in the IBC. Criteria have been established to address the minimum safety requirements without duplicating existing code provisions. And they have a special standard out for the use of these shipping containers. It'll tell you where to cut holes and how large the holes can be. And you no longer need to take all these to a professional engineer and have it design it. You can pretty much do a lot of this work yourself without the use of an engineer. Haven't seen many structures locally, but except maybe a storage building where they set it on the lot. But some of this stuff is getting pretty interesting, the way they fabricate with it. Okay, next up, the significant changes to the National Electrical Code. GFI for outside HVAC units is not required. It always has been required in the past, but now we don't need a GFI receptacle by the outside heating equipment. Significant changes to the International Plumbing Code. Quantities of standing versus wheelchair drinking fountains. Again, this would be design oriented, but 50% of the required number of drinking fountains must be for standing persons, the other 50% for persons who use wheelchairs, high and low drinking fountains. If you provide more than the minimum number of fountains, they still need to be split 50-50 between high and low. Water heaters. New type of water heater is available for emergency showers and eye wash stations that does not require a temperature actuated mixing valve. Where hot and cold water is supplied to an emergency shower or eye wash station, the temperature of the water supply shall only be controlled by the temperature actuated mixing valve complying with ASSE 1071. Where water is supplied directly to an emergency shower or eye wash station from a water heater, the water heater shall comply with ASSE 1085. The mixing valve, the water needs to be heated to a certain temperature to kill the bacteria, and that'll scald you. So it needs some tempering with a tempering valve to add some cold water to that so you don't get scalded. So that's what goes on in a water heater. Shower control valves to be rated for the installed shower head. Lower flow shower heads need to be compatible with the shower control valve. The code requires a shower head flow rate be limited to 2.5 gallons per minute. Individual tenant water shutoff valve. Multiple tenant buildings must have a main water shutoff valve for each tenant space. Backflow device for low hazard boiler applications. The code adds a recognized standard, ASSE 1081, for a combination pressure regulator backflow preventer for product for boilers. PVC and ABS DWV direct waste vent fittings. There you go. Push vent fittings are now a new type of DWV fitting for ABS and PVC piping that when used will reduce installation time. The push fit joint shall conform to ASME A112.4.4 and shall be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's installation instructions. Methods for restoring building sewer piping. The code recognizes two methods. Certification shall be provided in writing to the code official from the permit holder that the relining materials have been installed in accordance with the manufacturer's installation instructions and the applicable standards in this code. On to significant changes to the International Mechanical Code. Condensate discharge. Significant coverage is added to the code regarding the point of disposal of condensate. Such coverage addressed what has been common practice in most jurisdictions. Condensate drains shall not directly connect to any plumbing drain, waste, or vent pipe. Condensate drains shall not discharge into a plumbing fixture other than a floor sink, floor drain, trench drain, mop sink, up drains, standpipe, utility sink, or laundry sink. A pretty specific language. It's been a problem for a year. Condensate discharge. Okay, here we've got. To show different ways, code compliant ways of doing the drains. If you're not a plumber, you're not going to understand anything. Termination location for dryer exhaust. New text was added to address the possibility of dryer exhaust air being reintroduced into the building's interior. Exhaust duct termination shall be in accordance with the dryer manufacturer's installation instructions. Where they do not specify a termination location, the exhaust duct shall terminate not less than 3 feet in any direction from openings into the building, including openings in vented soffit. Once again, just showing you that It's gotta be 3 feet from an opening unless your manufacturer's installation instructions tells you you can bring it closer, and it's not gonna tell you that. Pipe and duct installation within plenums. This revision addresses the practice of using pipe insulation materials to protect piping that does not meet the required fire performance requirements. Insulation contained in plenums, including insulation adhesives, shall have a flame spread index of not more than 25 and a smoke developed index of not more than 50 when tested in accordance with ASTM E84 or UL 723. Wood burning residential hydronic heaters. That's those outdoor boilers, I think. That's, you see them outside and, on a beautiful day, beautiful cold fall day, and the smoke's just going everywhere. Well, that's where it's coming from. This revision makes the code consistent with EPA rules for heater emissions. The new wood burning residential hydronic heaters shall be EPA certified. Machinery room means of egress. Revised egress requirements for machinery rooms from the IBC were added to the IMC to prevent such requirements from being overlooked. Machinery rooms larger than 1,000 square feet in area shall not have less than 2 exits or exit access doorways. Where 2 exit access doorways are required, 1 such doorway is permitted to be served by a fixed ladder or an alternating tread device, otherwise known as a Lapeyre stair. Significant changes to the International Fuel Gas Code. Concealed condensate piping. Code was revised to address the concern over the terminations of concealed condensate drain lines where it will not be apparent which drain is the normal condensate drain and which drain is the secondary drain. The termination of concealed condensate piping shall be marked to indicate whether the piping is connected to the primary drain or to the secondary drain. Venting system, terminal clearances. Through the wall vent terminal clearance distances have been placed in a new table with a corresponding figure for ease of use. The clearances for through the wall direct vent and non-direct vent terminals shall be in accordance with table 503.8 and figure 503.8. I'm not going to read these diagrams to you, but there's your table. Again, it's going to spell out how to terminate your venting system. Good connector junctions. The text addresses the juncture of appliance vent connectors and their required method. Where the vent connectors are joined together, the connection shall be made with a T or a Y fitting. So, no more of this. No more of those handmade junctions. Has to be specific fitting for that use. return air from a mechanical room. Clarifies the intent to prohibit pulling return air from the mechanical room. Where a furnace is installed so that the supply ducts carry air circulated by the furnace to areas outside of the space containing the furnace, the return air shall be handled by a duct sealed to the furnace casing and terminated outside of the space containing the furnace. Return air shall not be taken from the mechanical room containing the furnace. And the local amendments, we talked about the local amendments that they're not ready yet, they're not out of legal, but the moment they get approved, and they'll be put on our website and available. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and we would have time for some questions.
You had suggested that with the R60 installation, that there might be modifications to the ceiling structure for that?
There very well may be, depending on the type of ceiling you propose. A suspended ceiling probably wouldn't do very well with R60 installation. And that's part of, again, the Maryland amendment was addressing those concerns with the structure.
Okay.
So the Maryland amendment to the energy code will allow you to keep the R49 in the ceiling, but again, there's some trade-offs.
Right.
And, need a little higher E value for the windows or something like that. But what it does, it allows you some performance options where typically we have been using the prescriptive method to comply with that code.
Right.
And now they're giving you some performance ways to comply and still use R49 in the ceiling.
When are the local amendments supposed to be issued?
Then we come, we're waiting on legal, they're already gone through the process. When the commissioners adopted it, it was the red line version. And so they're now legal to, incorporate those. As soon as they come available, we'll put them on the website. But they will be, July 1, we should have them well before July 1.
But you're not sure if they'll be by May 15th to be able to review those at the next session?
We're gonna reach out to them.
We're gonna reach- yeah.
That's your goal.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
As far as what would actually show up on a set of building permits for a single family home, are you all, is there like a short list of what, as a builder, we actually need to have our architect put on before July?
Your drawing package should include our new policy on residential land.
Well, yeah, and I saw this a month or so ago when you all sent it out, but this isn't quite like a bullet of, send this to your architect and tell him these are the 10 things that now, like when it changed from R38 to R49 insulation or 2x6 walls, those were pretty obvious things that are going to need to be on a set of building permits, but all of these we're already doing, as a builder. And so I just am trying to make sure I don't submit my first building permit and come back with a laundry list of things that you all would like to see at that point based on the new code, and it take months to get an architect and a structural engineer and everybody else to get those and put it onto a set of plans versus having, if this is all it is, then I don't think our set of prints from 2018 to 2021 would actually have to show anything different.
That doesn't address any of the code changes.
Exactly.
That's just some internal changes in what we expect to receive in the way of drawing. We've gotten pretty lax with requiring drawing from residential projects. And some of them are really bad. I know we're talking McDonald's napkins, design, or crayon. So we had to do something because we were eating up all our time internally. We had planning examiners who were having to design buildings for people, it's just because they didn't want to spend the money to go hire a designer. So it was really messed up the time. So that's where that came from, the requirements for the residential plan submittals. Now, this is different. Your architect, your engineer, they should be getting educated in classes like this, significant changes, to tell them what's changing in the code. We just hit some of the high points of them here today. One of the books that's available through the International Code Council is the significant changes. They print one of these for almost every one of these code books. And there's your changes. And so every design professional that's in this for a living has to keep on top of that code. So they're the guys who know individually what changes need to be made to those 2018 plans to make them both compliant with 2020.
Practically speaking though, until the local amendments come out and we are notified as a builder what is actually going to be enforced or required in Washington County, there are probably 1,000 different things in that book that they would be responsible for doing that aren't actually going to be enforced, or things that will, where the rubber is the road.
I wouldn't say it that way.
Well, say 10.
I would
Say,
say,
some number, but, you know, for instance, at the homeowner association meeting yesterday, we were talking how Frederick has come out saying that they will enforce that you can't have outlets on a kitchen island.
Mhm.
So all of our electrical plans are gonna have to be updated to show that those outlets are removed. That's going to take 30 or 45 days to get a design professional to do. And if I have a building permit, I'm trying to submit on July 5th, it would be nice if, when the local amendments came out, you know, if there was some direction there of the 10 things you all are really gonna be looking for and will hold up a permit versus something that might come in a comment or something. Just any direction you can give us, because architects and engineers are a little bit slower than builders are sometimes, would be really appreciated.
I'll answer that. The local amendments have, you could go to the 2018 ones, they're not changing. We changed a couple of words here and there from an administrative standpoint, but Terry, I mean, correct me, we didn't change local amendments. There's no significant change from the 18 to the 21 as far as our local amendments.
Were the local amendments, the red line version, were they included in the ARC that you submitted on February
Yes.
27th? So they are publicly available?
Yeah, they are
It's not posted
publicly
on the
available
website.
for we just don't have the red line version. Legal is still working on taking that and converting it to, you know, the regular document that'll be posted. But there's no significant changes in the local amendments from 18 to 21.
So if he needed a copy of the red line version, would you be able to?
Yeah,
get
we
that?
can get you a copy of the red line version, you
So
know.
just to, so the car charger ports, though, in the garage are something that has been changed since 2018, that's now being enforced, and is something we're updating all of our plans to reflect.
Right.
So that would be, that, you know, that's an example of something that's already been rolled out that is requiring us to update the plans. Is there anything else of that magnitude that you all could help, you know, and make sure we have a little bit ahead of it? So that would really be the biggest change that you all are looking to have reflected on building plans.
Right.
Because then we're having to update our services to 400 amp, and it's having a significant impact on the construction process, so.
I can tell you, outside of that, there's really nothing. Now, there's a couple of house deals, we're still waiting to see what happens, and if they get passed and if they get signed, that we're aware of, but it's not in effect. If and when that does go through, then we'll make it public if it is something that needs to change. But it's nothing, the ones that I'm looking at right now, they're nothing that's going to affect a residential. It's, you know, IBC related, right now.
And obviously, I understand that the HVAC contractors, the electrical contractors, there's a lot of detail that they really need to know better than us as a builder. And that, you know, there are nuances in those that they're going to have to figure out. They don't show up on the building plans. And that's really what, I think all the builders are trying to stay ahead of that. I know in Berkeley County, they adopted, and the building code, it didn't even send out a notice that you had to go to 2x6 walls, and that really created about a 3-month backlog on certain things. So they started enforcing that you had to have a compaction test from a geotech at the time of building permit, or soil analysis. I mean, bigger things like that, if there are things that are gonna require builders to have other professionals, provide those sort of documents, as much notice as you all could give us would be greatly appreciated.
You give me my card, send me an email, I'll send you the red line version.
Thank you.
Of the local agreement.
And that people will send it to the Development Association as well, so that they can distribute it that way.
That was my question. I was just gonna ask that it be sent to Home Builders Association too, so I can push it out to them.
Do you want me to send that to you, Chris?
Yeah, could you make it, please?
Any more questions? Well, thank you for coming.